6 weeks later, as German tanks rolled into Prague, Ji Chanlin was awoken in Göttingen by the national anthem blaring out of the radio. Germany has invaded Czechoslovakia, his landlady announced. She then kept repeating, Hitler only wants peace. The Czechs were tyrannizing the Germans. It's all the Jews' fault, just like the papers say. 1939, and a prelude to war in Europe. I bought this book back in October because I had an unnerving feeling of trouble brewing and wanted to compare the state of the world then to now. 5 months on, and once again the invading force of a major world power is wreaking death and destruction upon the continent. In this episode of Piano Tales, I want to share my feelings about the situation in Ukraine, what I've been up to lately, and how once again the piano has been a source of light in dark times. It was the 24th of February, the very same day that the final COVID isolation rules were scrapped here, that Russia launched a military incursion into Ukraine, thereby providing a depressing segue from one set of upheavals to another. As horrifying images of bereaved and displaced civilians started to filter through, the music industry was quick to speak out, like Tasma Studios here.
I am terribly sorry and sad to see how the situation in Ukraine is escalating. No one wanted this war except one person, Vladimir Putin. And you know that he's not only a man, but a monster.
Now, Russia is a vast country of 150 million people, and it's fair to say that not all of them support that one man and his ambitions. But what do they think? In recent years, the advice from the British government when travelling to Russia has been to avoid talking about politics at all, presumably because the drip-fed anti-Russian sentiment put about here would come into direct conflict with the anti-Western stuff they get there. And one thing any government fears is when normal people get wise and start to reject the division they seek to sow. When I visited in 2018, I much preferred to find and celebrate the common ground between our nationalities. And what better way to do that than through the piano?
I wake up to the sound of music, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be.
Duetting until the morning sky turned light, with vodkas in hand, we made a toast.
What you're speaking about, and I'm liking it toast. So, and I would add something to this toast.
For music, like an universal language of soul.
My way. Apt, perhaps, to describe the personal philosophy of Russia's autocratic leader. In another bar, far from the capital, in the shadow of the Ural Mountains, I did find someone who was willing to express an overt view about Mr. Putin.
There is two kinds of people in Russia, who hates Putin and who loves him. Old people, they all like Putin, and young people like me or my friends dislike him. I am just so tired of that almost all of my life. He's sitting on his golden throne and smiling to his people when the government stole our money and we are dying.
That image of Putin sitting on his throne was adopted and mocked by a Ukrainian brewery. Huilo loosely translates as dickhead. I ended up sampling this very beer at source during a visit to Western Ukraine in 2016, but more on that trip later. What shocked me recently was the sight of these same beer bottles being fervently repurposed as Molotov cocktails in the early days of the invasion. Now, the brewery's name is Pravda, meaning truth, which has famously been called the first casualty of war. A quick glance at domestic newspapers here reveals unashamedly partisan coverage of what is happening, in diametric opposition to Russian state sources like TASS or the interviews of Press Secretary Dmitry Peskov. The danger is when we don't apply critical thinking skills to all our sources. Who's funding this and what's their wider agenda? How have they opted to present it and with what choice of words? What's been omitted and what logical fallacies may be embedded? Censorship is being increased by authorities on both sides of the fence. Sometimes we don't even know what we don't know, and it's so easy to let those gaps in our knowledge be flooded by prejudice and speculation. My attraction to performing music is in part because it exists in a realm beyond that daily obfuscation of truth pumped out by the news media. Clearly, I am not an Eggman, and I am not a walrus either, last time I looked. So does that mean I'm no better than the papers because I lie when I sing? In a literal sense, perhaps. But there's a famous quote attributed to Pablo Picasso: "Art is a lie which helps reveal the truth." Music as an art form has always been my comfort in times of deep uncertainty, and so it can be for others.
So, on the 12th of March, here and Pinho, with Tasma Productions and Hussar Records, we're organizing an all-day charity event to raise money to help Ukrainians in distress. This is now something vital, not just important, but vital.
All right. Hey, there we go. The first tune of what is sure to be a fantastic day. And yeah, what an honour to be kicking it off today. I believe we've got 8.5 hours of music coming at you.
Playing at a studio with its own record shop inspired me to dig out some lesser played but appropriate songs for the occasion. First up, an album from my childhood, Goodbye Jumbo, and a track called When the Rainbow Comes. In it, World Party songwriter Karl Wallinger borrows from biblical imagery to describe a journey towards peace.
I need a prayer, need a blessing. Cast a line out as you run. Turn around now, see the rainbow come.
I finished my set with a song from Pink Floyd's The Wall. Not only is this one of the most acclaimed concept albums and movies in rock history, but 10 years ago it became the highest grossing tour by any solo artist when Roger Waters put together a spectacular stage adaptation. I took these pictures at the London O2. The show covers themes such as isolation, loss, and the deterioration of the self, as well as imparting a strong anti-war message. The protagonist is a burnt-out rock star called Pink, whose father was killed in a World War II land battle, and over time the trauma causes Pink to develop the very fascistic leanings that his father had supposedly been fighting against. When the song Comfortably Numb comes on, we see him being shot up with drugs to get him to his gig, which by now has morphed into a kind of Nazi rally. I feel like we too can become comfortably numb and desensitized, or worse, when faced with the horrors of war in a distant theatre. But it's worth remembering the images we see are of real people with exactly the same needs, wants, hopes and fears as you or me.
Hello, the corner of my eye. I turn to look, but it was gone. I cannot put my finger on it now. The child is grown, the dream is gone. I have become comfortably numb. it's about me done. So thank you very much. I've been James. I'm going to see you guys again sometime.
And packed full of other donations from the day, off went the van towards the snowy war zone. Travelling to Ukraine has never been straightforward, even in peacetime. To reach the west of the country in 2016, I had to stop over at a small ex-military airport 50 miles south of Warsaw. It was then a short flight to my destination, Lviv.
Well, this is my first full day in Ukraine, and this is the apartment that I'm staying in. And this works out at about £25 per night. £25 a night!
The affordable prices indicative of a city that hadn't yet been spoiled by Western tourism. As such, there was a quirky authenticity about the place, as well as a unique blend of historical features. The city had, over time, been within the sphere of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, Poland, Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. From garlic lard to pig snout, the local specialties in food and drink were certainly memorable, and I found the people to be good-humoured and generous hosts. When my street was hit by regular power outages, nothing was too much trouble.
Just getting me some slippers. Oh, I think it fits. Excellent. What's thank you in Ukrainian?
Дякую.
One of the highlights of the trip was a famous restaurant in Ryonok Square.
Aha, I have forgotten about a good place.
At the door to the bunker housing Kryivka Cafe, visitors are greeted with "Glory to Ukraine." Gaining entry requires the response "Glory to the heroes," a nationalistic salute dating back to the early 20th century, and one you may have heard being used recently. The truth is, Ukrainians are no strangers to war. In fact, the restaurant's motto is "The fight continues." Donbass, of course, was already a hotbed of conflict during my trip, leading to the football club from Donetsk having to relocate 600 miles to Lviv. I experienced one of their so-called home matches, and what a strange atmosphere it was. And then it was time to head to Kiev, a proud and modern city, once capital of the Kievan Rus, now a target for bombardment. This recent viral clip of one of its residents says more than words could about the human spirit in adversity. How lucky are those who have a place to play that isn't under attack and surrounded by flames? This is the Forum, a university meeting place and a venue for important messages to be heard.
Let us have the strength to channel our despair, anxiety and anger into actions that will help, in some small way, to alleviate suffering and bring the conflict to an end. Let us give what we can to the charities and other agencies who are working to provide medical and humanitarian aid. War injures everyone involved, including the aggressors.
This is an important point, as the invading soldiers are people too. Weirdly, a month before the invasion, I wrote and acted in a short film in which I played a member of the Russian militia. The piano score came out of free improvisation. The Russian is a largely sympathetic character who is controlled and contained by a hierarchical chain of command, one which is tearing him away from his true love. In Peter Jackson's film They Shall Not Grow Old, you can hear how ignorant the ordinary World War I foot soldier was of the overarching plans of his military leaders. Perhaps the same is true today. War requires emotional detachment, and after not sleeping or eating properly for weeks, becoming frightened and confused, it's not surprising troops can begin acting on impulse and desperation, but ultimately this is the politicians' war, not theirs. However, our greatest sympathies lie naturally with those in the most immediate need of help, and who had the least say in this dreadful course of events. I'm talking about the Ukrainian civilians and refugees, 4 million of whom have reportedly fled the country.
They come from a place where everything is bombed, and now they come here and they hear a piano. So this is like a cut. They leave the bombs behind and they go to the music.
While I couldn't get a piano out to the border like David here, I did have one more chance to help from afar.
Sorry if you're wearing headphones or if in general you're just listening in. We are here for something so special. What is it?
It's 24 Hours Live!
We are fundraising for urgently needed refugee relief for Ukrainians fleeing the violent conflict over there.
And we're only
doing
£40 away.
Action Aid, and we're only £40 away from our £300 goal.
In the studio right now, last minute addition to the lineup, but I'm really, really excited to hear what he has to offer. So, this is James Alexander. Enjoy.
Light up the magic for every boy and girl. Let our love shine a light in every corner of the world. And we're all gonna shine a light together. Shine a light in every corner of our heart.
Piano extraordinaire. Yeah, how are you, James? How was that?
Oh, I am incredibly, humongously hungover.
Oh!
Do you know what? Most people have been today.
Yeah, fair enough.
Lola included.
You know what, Harry? No, not anymore.
You've worn it off.
I've worn it off. There was a moment before the show started, literally 3 minutes before, it was, 12, and I was like, oh, my head. But then I thought, we've got to change the attitude. It's not oh, my head, it's oh, my yes. That's what it is.
I really like that attitude, yeah.
Thank you.
That's exactly the same thing I had to kind of adopt this morning when I was struggling to get out of bed. I say this morning, it was this afternoon, actually.
Where did you go last night?
Yeah.
I had a big sesh at the Monkey Suit.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, ideal preparation for doing some vocals and piano.
Yeah, but it was just very last minute, so
it was great.
You had to prioritise both.
You do, and also it's a good cause, and some things are more important than our hangovers, right, guys?
Absolutely.
Let's finish where we started. She took Gerda down to the cellar where all the occupants of her apartment block had gathered. Suddenly they heard soldiers running in the street. Then someone rattled at the cellar door and it opened. We all sat as if we had been turned to stone. A Russian soldier entered the cellar and sat down to bandage his finger. He gave Gerda a sweet and left a message on a postcard that Biddy later had translated. Now you are all safe and you will have democracy. Who are the good guys and who are the bad guys? The word Nazi has been thrown around a lot by both sides in this war, and mainly as a lazy pejorative. No one is born a Nazi. We all have it within us to bring music to the world in our own ways, or to bring suffering. Let's hope for the sake of the future that it's the former that prevails. Once again, thanks for watching, and until next time, peace out.